On June 18th, 2023, we would have one of the most memeable yet tragic things happen to a group of people that decided to take a submarine tour. This is known as the OceanGate submersible implosion incident. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, I'll briefly sum up the entire story. OceanGate was a company that wanted to profit off the Titanic wreck that was sitting at the bottom of the ocean by building submarines and having people take tours of the wreck using their submarines. And they weren't cheap by any means. And so with this, a lot of one percenters thought this would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, kind of like climbing Mount Everest. But anyone who had an eye for submersibles would know that these things were anything but safe. And just like a hooker in Las Vegas, there were a lot of red flags, from the size of the submersible to the oxygen supply to the sturdiness of the hull, and the fact, and most memeable part of these submarines, was the fact that it was controlled by a GameCube controller or a Logitech controller. And this created the infamous meme of the sub going down because the batteries in the Xbox controller died. Now, about an hour into this submersible trip, all 5 passengers would find themselves lost. The submarine would stop working, and basically all hope was lost the minute that news came through. Keep in mind that this submarine had no SOS distress signal, and there was no way out of the submarine. The submarine was actually fitted so that you could only unlock it from the outside, not while you're stuck inside in case something like this happened. So this submersible stuck in the middle of the ocean with no distress signal to give out for anyone to have any clue of where they are. And even rescue responders knew it was only a matter of time before they would find pieces of the wreckage, before they would find dead bodies floating on the ocean, or in the mouths of sharks. And that's because of the depth of the ocean. As they went deeper, the sturdiness of the hull would just give in until it eventually just imploded. And because of this, that's exactly what happened. The submarine would eventually implode and kill everyone on board with it, and hope was given up after finding much wreckage pieces of the submersible floating on the surface of the water. But what if I were to tell you that there's a sequel to this coming in 2063? That's right. Prepare for OceanGate 2 Earth Moon Boogaloo. Now you may be asking yourself, what exactly does this Boogaloo consist of? Well, I'm so glad you asked that. You see, after this incident, OceanGate basically swore off creating submersibles and trying to plunge the depths of the ocean. And as a collective human race, I say thank God for that decision. But ever since then, OceanGate has been kept it real quiet on what their next move is, how they're going to move on from this incident, and what their future projects are. And that was kept in the dark up until recently, when the co-founder of OceanGate, a Mr. Guillermo Solin, actually got us insight on what is next for OceanGate. And instead of plunging the depths of the ocean, we are instead looking to the stars as Solin wants to, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, colonize the moon by the year 2063. Apparently Solin isn't just the co-founder of OceanGate, though. He's also a chairman on something called the Waypaver Foundation, which is a non-profit organization I was very unfamiliar with, and when doing research into them, I actually found their website where it's very bare bones. It's a very blank website that has a small amount of text and, of course, a functioning donation box for you to help further their cause. What causes that? I'm so glad you asked. Apparently, the Waypaver Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to making humanity a multi-planet species by supporting projects on Earth in the fields of exploration, science, education, and sustainability. Now, anyone with 2 brain cells firing off on a synapse would think, hey, this sounds like a scam, and you'd probably be right about this. But weirdly enough, Waypaver actually has a foot plan of how they want to go about colonizing the moon, and it all starts in 2031 with Project Moonhut. This project being that they're going to establish, coordinate, and flourish a Pizza Hut on the moon. Okay, I'm kidding about that, but you actually believed me on that. But after going through the outline of Project Moonhut, you would agree with me that it's not that far off in the terms of outlandishness as planting a Pizza Hut on the moon. By 2031, Celine wants to launch a small trailer onto the moon, about the size of the ones you'd see in construction yards. This will house 4 to 8 people that will then begin building an industrial park, that which would then hold 90 people. And from this, he says by the year 2046, remember this is 15 years into the project, they will have a mini-city of 578 people on the moon, and eventually will have a thriving community of around 1,644 people by 2063. But worry not, kids, for once we have this thriving community around 1,600 people, that's when the Waypaver Foundation says we can maximize the utilization of the moon for discovery, manufacturing, and selling products from the moon to the Earth itself, thus beginning what the Waypaver Foundation calls the Mirth economic system. But the biggest problem with this Mirth economic system is the fact that the moon has nothing new for us to take. It's a big floating rock in space. So we're just sending materials to the moon to build a civilization, only to send those materials back with a made on the moon sticker. Now this is where Seku from Dr. Stone would say,
"This is exhilarating. Get excited."
Because this isn't even Celine's first rodeo when it comes to space exploration. Back in 2020, he would actually create a foundation called the Humans to Venus Foundation. I'll give you bonus points if you can guess where they tried to colonize. Yep, Venus, the second planet from the Sun with no atmosphere and 800 degrees surface temperature. Perfect place for human conditions. But don't worry, Celine says he has a plan, that he'll just simply build structures 31 miles off the surface of Venus, and that'll protect you against the sun. Also, I find it kind of funny that if you go to the Join Now section, the first 3 bullet points are the same 3 things that those alpha male websites will use to lure you in and give them money for their boot camps. Whenever I read stories about people like Salim, I'm always reminded of that age-old proverb of leave it to professionals and don't try this at home. But when it comes to the people like Salim, they're going to do what they want anyways, because in my opinion, they have more money than they do common sense. Salim doesn't have an astronomy degree, an aeronautics degree, an engineering physics degree, a playthrough of Mass Effect 3 on his Xbox 360, or any of these degrees listed here. But you know what he does have? An AB in economics from the University of California. Heck yeah. So we have that to look forward to as this economics major launches a rocket into space that could very well, from the previous track history of OceanGate, turn out to be Challenger Explosion 2.0. In which case, I gladly volunteer to be one of the 4 to 8 people on this vessel. I will be the first kamikaze cosmonaut for planting a Pizza Hut on the moon.